Legalize unicorns. With news media and regulators frequently citing a, quote, focus on retailing as the red flag of a pyramid scheme, the MLM industry needed more than doublespeak or fake statistics and diversion to maintain the retail ruse. Into this confusing and treacherous space, where millions of people are lured into, quote, direct selling with their money and hopes, the U.S. Federal Trade Commission brought its power and authority to bear to uphold the retail myth. Under the thumb of political forces supported by MLM money, the FTC's role is hopelessly conflicted, leading to its own big lie. Decades of futile and frustrating effort by consumer activists and MLM victims to get the FTC to investigate MLM recalls Upton Sinclair's famous insight into systemic corruption. Quote, "It is difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends on his not understanding it." In a perfectly ironic circumstance, the interests of both parties, FTC and MLMs, have merged around a common narrative, the legalization of something that does not exist, like a unicorn. Protective coloring for the FTC has been achieved with a mythical definition of MLM, not found in the real world. If this definition were true, it would technically meet the definition of legality as outlined in various court decisions. Definition used by FTC, quote, "Multi-level marketing is one form of direct selling and refers to a business model in which a company distributes products through a network of distributors who earn income from their own retail sales of the product and from retail sales made by the distributors' direct and indirect recruits. Because they earn a commission from the sales their recruits make, each member in the MLM network has an incentive to continue recruiting additional sales representatives into their downlines." Metaphorically, the FTC legalized unicorns, MLMs that met the retail-based definition, to roam the forest and enchant humans. However, under this policy, if a real creature happened to be found to be impersonating unicorns by not having the mythical power to enchant, virtually no retail revenue, and a main focus on recruiting, it could be removed from the forest, shut down. Since officially these unicorn MLMs do exist, and MLM prosecutions are extremely infrequent, it may be assumed by the public that unicorn impersonators, illegal MLMs that are pyramid schemes, are rare. Public suppression of the FTC, covered in ugly detail in the next section, is matched by absurdly limited resources. The FTC's 2020 budget is just over $300 million, with just 1,140 full-time positions. For perspective, the Herbalife settlement of a $200 million fine paid to the FTC and dispersed to 350,000 victims represented an amount equivalent to 65% of the FTC's entire annual operating budget. The FTC protection policy, like MLM's recruiting scheme, appears on the surface to be its opposite: a consumer protection agency to prosecute illegal MLMs. It has a record of more than 30 successful MLM prosecutions. A closer look and a study of the FTC's regulatory history reveal only the clamor of gongs and cymbals. Though MLM presents a new and unprecedented threat to the public, an entire industry based upon endless chain deception, the FTC has never requested definitive legislation to enable enforcement. To combat MLM pyramids, the FTC interprets the general language of Section 5A of the FTC Act to include pyramid schemes as, quote, unfair or deceptive acts or practices in or affecting commerce. Violation of this provision is only a civil offense. The Department of Justice, in collaboration with the FBI, the SEC, and the Postal Inspector Service, could prosecute pyramid schemes criminally for fraud. This rarely happens. Some state statutes define pyramids or endless chains as felony violations, but those local laws, especially without FTC or SEC support, are almost never enforced. When the FTC does, on occasion, prosecute MLMs, it implicitly treats the companies as outliers, which prevents triggering a wider investigation to see if the mythical entity the FTC calls legitimate MLM really exists. No discovery of MLM fraud triggers an inquiry to assess whether the fabled model that is based on retail sales and provides a viable income opportunity for all recruits exists in the real world. Further upholding the mythical legitimate MLM, the FTC has never named or identified a single MLM that serves as a living specimen, an exemplar of a law-abiding, retail-based MLM. In this manner, the FTC could prosecute a few MLM schemes from time to time, less than one a year on average since 1980, that were found not to meet its definition, that is, were impersonating legitimate MLM. With the deftness George Orwell would appreciate, with each pyramid scheme prosecution of an MLM, the FTC affirmed that MLM is legitimate, and by implication, all the other MLMs uphold the retail-based model and are safe for consumers to invest their money and time in. It logically follows that anyone who points to the massive loss and dropout rates among recruits, or who questions if MLM really is retail-based, is, quote, anti-MLM. If unicorns were legally defined as real, a person that questioned whether unicorns really did exist would be treated as a non-believer, a cynic, and anti-unicorn. This unfounded, presumptive, retail-based definition is maintained even as the largest MLMs, such as Amway and Nu Skin, have paid out millions in class action lawsuits to settle claims brought by consumers that they are not retail-based. When Herbalife was found by the FTC itself to be non-retail-based, no investigation was made by the FTC to see whether or not Herbalife's practices typified the entire field of MLM. The FTC uses retail sales as a measurable factor in determining MLM legality. With millions of people investing money in the belief that MLMs are retail-based, it would seem that all MLMs would be required to verify their retail sales levels. No requirement to disclose retail sales levels has ever been asked for or imposed by the FTC. Instead, when the FTC prosecutes an MLM, the FTC places responsibility upon itself to prove that adequate retail sales don't exist, a classic challenge of having to prove a negative. Consumer reports of widespread deception or independent analyses of multiple MLMs that show no significant retail sales have been dismissed by the FTC as, quote, anecdotal or rejected as not evidence. The classic tools of propaganda employed by MLM leaders, big lie, alternative facts, cultivated myths, doublespeak, fake statistics, and discrediting critics, have successfully confused and mesmerized millions of consumers and diverted news media. The control and collusion of the FTC and other sectors of law enforcement, however, require direct action. Political influence buying involving state legislators, attorneys general, Congress, and the U.S. presidency. Behind MLM's license to fraudulently claim perpetual expansion, falsely promise unlimited income, and openly run money transfer recruiting schemes disguised as direct selling is old-fashioned political corruption, boodling, and bribing. Public officials have to be influenced to protect MLM over the public interest. The story of Ponzinomics now enters the dark world of K Street lobbying, revolving doors between consumer protection agencies and pyramid schemes, and political fixes.